Welcome to Geared Up, brought to you by National Car Rental. I'm Todd Bishop.
I'm Andrew Edwards.
We have a Samsung Galaxy Note 9 here on the table with us.
That's right, in studio.
We're going to be unboxing it on today's show and talking about the ins and outs of this new super gadget.
Mm-hmm. Right. It's one of the biggest, literally and figuratively, of the year as far as smartphones go.
Absolutely. Later on, we're also going to be talking about the Tesla plan to take the company private, plus tips and tricks for Wi-Fi mesh networking. That's all coming up this week on Geared Up. Hey, before we jump in, Andrew, I want to tell folks out there, we've got a little bit of an announcement to make.
Tell them. I don't even know what the announcement is.
So we talk a lot. Yeah, we talk a lot about Nintendo on this show.
We do.
And I want to tell you that Reggie, the president of Nintendo of America,
Reggie,
is going to be joining us for the GeekWire Summit, which
right.
is our big tech conference coming up in October in Seattle. And you can join us there too in the audience. Go to geekwire.com/summit. And we actually even have a special discount for Geared Up viewers and listeners. Just use the code Geared Up for a special discount on tickets to the GeekWire Summit, where Reggie Fils-Aimé is going to be. I'm pretty sure, yes. I need to work on it some more.
Fils-Aimé.
Yes, is going to be.
I thought it was Fils-Aimé.
Yeah, it might be Fils-Aimé too. So hopefully we'll get that right before he actually comes on stage. I need to double check all that stuff. I've heard it's been multiple different pronunciations.
Okay, that should be the very first question that he's asked.
How about I ask him that beforehand and actually get that right beforehand? Like maybe even before going on a podcast and talking about him, I could figure that out. At any rate, you can see Reggie on stage at the GeekWire Summit coming up October 2nd and 3rd in Seattle. Reggie will be there on October 3rd, and you can get tickets at geekwire.com/summit. And again, the discount code for viewers and listeners to Geared Up is Geared Up.
Bam.
All right.
That's what's up.
Let's jump in. Our first topic is, in fact, our National Car Rental Story of the Week.
Switching things up.
Absolutely. So you can see Andrew's show, technically speaking, at youtube.com/nationalcarrent. And don't forget, go national, go like a pro. A big thanks to National for supporting Geared Up.
Yeah. If you're into traveling, if you travel, if you're on the road and you want to know the best tech that you need to take with you for business, for leisure, to have a good time, to be more productive, that is what Technically Speaking is all about. And I tell you all the different things you need to do, all different gadgets you should be taking with you when you're on the go.
Absolutely. So be sure to check out Andrew's show, Technically Speaking. National Car Rental is a great supporter of Geared Up, and we thank them for making this show possible. So with that,
what is the story of the week?
It is, in fact, the Samsung Galaxy Note 9. We've got it here on the table.
Yes.
Andrew, why don't I unbox it?
I want you to unbox it. I've actually reboxed it because I had to get a bunch of footage of it. I picked this up at the event in New York City where they launched the device. Was it a week ago? Last Thursday. It wasn't even a week ago. Last Thursday, I was in New York, picked up the device after. Just push it through. You got to push that through.
All the way
That's
through?
a sleeve.
Okay.
Yeah, there you go.
Got it. Being a little too timid here.
It was kind of impressive. Like, when I went in, I wasn't really expecting too much from the Note 9.
So give us the overall reset for somebody who has not been following the Samsung Galaxy Note 9.
Yeah.
They might have heard of the Note 7 and sort of the issues that it faced a few years back. Tell us about the Note 9.
Well, we got to go back to the Note 7 for a second. The Note 7, if you weren't around or really paying attention back then, the Note 7 was released. Very impressive phone. It was actually my favorite phone of 2016, but it got recalled because it started blowing up. Now, I don't know how many were blowing up, but there was an issue. They recalled it, they re-engineered it, re-released it, and it started blowing up again. So they recalled it one last time and they canceled it. And so the following year, last year with the Note 8, Samsung was very reserved about packing the Note 8 with features, especially with a big battery, because that's what was exploding, the battery. So last year, the Note 8 was a great phone, but it didn't push the boundaries as much as the Note line usually does. They were more reserved with it. This year, you can tell they're back. This phone, one of the key features is the battery life. All-day battery life, 4,000 milliamp hour battery, which is more than twice the size of battery that you'll find in an iPhone 10.
Wow.
So Samsung is back, and that's one of the main features.
So a lot of people are going to want to know the size of the screen. What's the screen size, and how does that compare to something like the iPhone 10 or the iPhone 8?
Screen size, you're looking at 6.5 inches. That is the largest screen ever on a Galaxy Note device. Very, Very large screen.
Can you hand me your iPhone 10 over there, Andrew?
Yeah.
I got to say, I'm holding this in my
iPhone
hand,
10.
the Galaxy Note 9. It is not as big as I expected it to be, which I
Note
consider
9?
a good thing. Yes. In other words,
Interesting.
it's very tall vertically, but if you look at it in terms of width, it's not that much wider than the iPhone 10. And it looks like the way they're accomplishing this is the new trick of getting rid of essentially all of the bezel, the border.
The side bezel.
Yeah.
Samsung has gotten rid of the side bezel, but they still have the bezels on the top and bottom.
Got it.
Which some people are like, why do you still have bezels? But other people are saying, I'd much rather have thin bezels on the top and bottom than have a notch right in the middle of the display. Curious what you guys think, though. Are you team notch or are you team small bezel? Where do you find yourself?
You know what? I actually still, I love the iPhone 10. I'm looking at this. I would have to try it out for a while. I've gotten so used to the little ears on the iPhone 10, essentially the parts of the screen that go on the other side of is it the mic and the camera?
The camera sensor bar.
Yeah, camera sensor bar. That I'm okay with it. But I have to say that this is not as heavy, nor is it as wide as I expected the new Note to be. So that is my first surprise. I like it. This actually would put this back in contention for me in terms of something that I could carry around because that was the main problem that I ran into with when I had like the iPhone 7 Plus. It was just this gigantic thing in your pocket that you really couldn't. It's hard to walk around
with gigantic bezels. Like the iPhone 6 Plus was the opposite when it came to bezels. Large phone, super large bezels as well.
So takeaway number one for me, size not that bad.
Okay, not that bad.
Yeah. Okay, so what else should we know about this device?
Let's talk about the S Pen.
Yeah.
That's the other big thing is the S Pen.
So you're taking it out of the bottom of it right now. And I noticed when I did that, it actually sensed it on the screen.
And you felt it, right?
Yeah.
You can also feel it. So you can, if the phone is off and you need to take a note, you can just pull the S Pen out and just start writing. You don't even have to power it on or anything. You just start writing right off the bat.
So
the thing this year, the S Pen now supports Bluetooth. So this can do more than it ever could before. For example, you can use this button on the S Pen as your camera shutter. You can use this button to launch apps from across the room. You can use this button if you plug the phone into HDMI to a computer using Samsung's DeX software. You can use this as your PowerPoint presentation, advance your slides. So this can do a lot more than it ever could before. It's not just a writing tool. And the other cool thing is this charges when it's in there. If it's dead, it has a 30-minute battery life. If it dies, you put it in, and in under 1 minute, it's fully charged again.
Very similar to the quick charge on the Apple AirPods.
Exactly. If it's dead, it will also still work as a stylus and writing tool, though. So it's only the Bluetooth that'll be affected if it dies.
Nice. Okay, so
that's the S Pen.
The connected S Pen, that's a new part. I love the idea of standing across the room and not having to do like a countdown to take a picture. You know what I'm saying?
Right, yeah.
Exactly. So you could just use that as your remote shutter. That's very nice. Slick. See, you were saying last week that Samsung always comes up with things that you wouldn't necessarily have thought of that they double down on. And actually, the Note originally was that when they brought out the stylus, the first notes and the whole notion of the phablet, something that was in between a phone and a tablet. And now here you have them continuing to do that in a smaller way with things like the remote shutter.
Yeah, but still, it's still very nice. Like those are things that, you can do that similarly with like an Apple Watch. I can put my iPhone 10 across the room, use my Apple Watch as a remote shutter. But this is included for the price, and this is, a minimum of like $400.
So the S Pen is included, and
S Pen comes, exactly.
Apple Watch is premium.
Exactly. So let's talk about here. You can take this stylus back. What about the storage? That was the other thing that impressed me. So Samsung is starting the Note 9 at 128 gigabytes of storage built in. They used to do 64, so they're doubling that. Apple just a couple years ago was still starting at 16. So now the baseline for the Note line is 128 gigs. The other option, if you want to upgrade from there, is 512 gigabytes.
Which is more than a lot of people have on their computer.
Right, 512. If you get a 128 gigabyte Note 8, you get 6 gigabytes of RAM. And if you get the 512, you get 8 gigabytes of RAM, which is like a computer.
Which again, yes, it is. I know that there's
like a laptop.
The saying that it's a computer in your pocket, but I mean, that truly is more powerful, more storage, better processor, more memory than some computers.
Correct. So they're really trying to pack it with specs, but the third part of the storage story is the micro SD card slot. it supports 512 gigabytes. So if you buy a 512 gigabyte Note 9 and you put in a 512 gigabyte card, you're walking around with a 1 terabyte phone, 1 terabyte of storage personally in your pocket, which that's crazy. You could a good way.
Easily back up a computer to it, but is that possible? Are you able to?
You can use your phone. That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
So instead of backing up your phone to the computer, you can back up your computer to the phone.
I don't know if they've made that possible. With Android, you would suspect Android, that somebody could hack it to do that.
It's a more open system that you can create an app that's insane.
But that flips it, because usually it would have been in the past people backing up their phones to their computers, and it goes the other way around. But the terabyte, and that's more than a lot of people need.
True.
Well, I guess with video.
The thing I like about the terabyte, though, is, we're all storing our stuff. Like, all these companies are saying use the cloud, right? If you're running out of space on your phone, store your stuff in the cloud. But we've been finding over and over that the cloud is not as secure as we thought it was, especially, with some versus others. Like Apple's cloud is more private than Google's cloud, for example. But what if you want to buy a Note 9, but you don't want to use Google Photos? You don't want to store your stuff in the cloud. Well, you have a terabyte. There's no need. You don't have to enable the cloud. The only thing is make sure you have your backups at home on other devices. But 1 terabyte is freeing enough to where you don't feel the pressure of having to store stuff elsewhere. You can store it all right on your device.
Very cool. Okay, so so far you're selling me, Andrew. I don't know if that's your intent.
No, my intent's not to sell you. My intent is just to show you, I get excited about tech. I carry around an iPhone. That's my main phone of choice, but it doesn't mean that I'm a fanboy. You know what I mean? I can get excited about if tech is cool, I'm excited and I want to talk about it. And so, Samsung, I didn't expect as much this year from the Note 9 as they delivered.
Okay. Very cool. So I know we've got a little bit more to talk about regarding the Note 9 here, and we're going to do that after we come back. We're going to take a break on Geared Up. All right, welcome back to Geared Up. I'm Todd Bishop.
I'm Andrew Edwards.
We've been talking about the new Samsung Galaxy Note 9. We have one right here in our hands. It's thin, it's tall, it's 6.5 inches on the screen. Andrew, we've been talking with folks on the live stream during the break. By the way, if you do want to follow us and get a behind-the-scenes view of the show, just go to youtube.com/gearlive, subscribe to Andrew's channel, or facebook.com/geekwire. Andrew, so how much is this thing going to set people back?
All right, so before we jump into the price, do know it's also got the latest Snapdragon processor in there, Snapdragon 845. That makes the phone 53% faster than the Note 8. 23% faster on the GPU. So it's also the latest and greatest as far as chip technology goes. That said, the 128 gigabyte version with 6 gigabytes of RAM is $999. So $1,000.
Another $1,000 phone, which is fascinating because that was the knock on the iPhone 10. Who's going to buy the iPhone 10? Who's going to buy a $1,000 phone? That was the question.
What we've seen is a lot of people are buying the iPhone 10. It's the best-selling iPhone of the year. But to be fair, Samsung's giving you a bigger screen, and they're also giving you twice the amount of storage space at 128 than the entry-level $1,000 iPhone 10, and 6 gigabytes of RAM versus 3. The 512 gigabyte model with 8 gigabytes of RAM is $1,250.
Wow!
Now that's more expensive than the 1150 256 gigabyte iPhone 10.
Okay, so that is fascinating to me. When you're talking about $1,250, I know we were making the comparison to computers earlier. You can get a pretty darn nice computer for about half that.
Yeah.
Less than half that.
Right.
For $1,250, that's a really nice computer. It's a nice computer and it's an expensive phone. So I recognize that a lot of people are paying this off in increments, no longer subsidies necessarily with their wireless carriers. They're paying it off in increments on their bill, but still, that's a lot of money.
It is a lot of money. For me, the way I look at it, though, I think a lot of people would agree. Like they'll agree with this sentiment. I don't know if they'll agree with the pricing. I use my phone more than any other tech out there. I touch my phone more often than I touch my laptop or my desktop, my game consoles, anything like that. And so, to me, if it's something you rely on so much, shouldn't that warrant the price versus, people are fine buying a $2,000 laptop that they'll use maybe 1/4 of the time that they'll use their phone.
Yeah. All right. So that is the Samsung Galaxy Note 9.
Someone said add tax on top of that. Don't forget the tax.
Don't forget the tax. That's right. We got good chiming in from the live stream. So big takeaways here, Andrew. Do you think Samsung has a hit here or just an incremental improvement? How would you sum this one up?
The thing is, I think the phone is very well made. I think the problem is most people look for the Galaxy S, not the Galaxy Note. The Galaxy Note is really the phone for, going back to the national car rental thing, it's for the business travelers, for people who are on the go doing business. Like when you think of a stylus and writing, like that's not something that everybody needs to do. It's really more of like, note taking and business people on the go, entrepreneurs. So it's more of a subset. It's not a phone for everybody. It's more of a subset. And there are definitely Note people who, it's like a cult of Galaxy Note. So I think they have a hit on their hands. However, it's a hit for that audience. It's not a hit for the general population.
Other announcements by Samsung this past week included a smart speaker with Bixby,
Yes.
their personal assistant. We don't have
Bixby.
one of those here in the studio. We do have a Galaxy Note 9, obviously, but your thoughts on that smart speaker real fast here.
It's just interesting that Samsung is trying to do what Google and Apple have done, which is kind of build their own ecosystem. Now, I say trying to do as if they don't have one. Samsung, if you're unaware, makes washing machines. I have a Samsung fridge with Bixby built into it. They make, seriously, Bixby is built into my fridge. Phones, they're making speakers now. So I guess my point is Samsung makes more than just phones already. So they do have kind of an ecosystem, and Bixby is what's been tying it together. And so now, they've seen what Google's been doing with smart speakers. They've seen what Apple's had with the HomePod. They've seen Alexa and things like that. And they want to have their piece of the pie as well. They want you to buy, if possible, a Samsung phone, a Samsung stove, Samsung fridge, Samsung smart speaker. They're partnering with Spotify to power their speaker. So rather than having their own homegrown music service or relying on Google or Apple's, they just partnered with Spotify, which is the most popular one in the world. So interesting.
Do you know the details on that in terms of price?
It's not coming. No, they have not announced price. Okay. It's not coming out for a while.
Okay. All right. Let's move on to another gadget.
Another gadget. Okay.
Your new Tesla.
My new Tesla. Okay. Which one? I have one that's 2 months old.
So I'm on Facebook this weekend. I see that your wife posts that you're getting a new Tesla. And I for a second I thought, no, you're selling your existing Tesla. Right. And I was like, wait a second. You just bought the new Tesla 3, Tesla Model 3. And you're buying another one. Tell us this story, Andrew.
Well, what happened was the following. Okay. 2 years and 4 months ago, when you had to walk and stand in line at the Tesla store to put your money down, $1,000 for the Model 3, you could reserve 2 spots. So I went there. I reserved 2 just because it's like, you can do 2. Everybody else in front of me is doing 2. I'm going to do 2 also. I don't know what I was going to do with it. I had no plans of owning 2 Teslas. But maybe I can give one to a friend or whatever if they wanted to get in the line. So fast forward 2 years and 2 months later, my Model 3 became available for me to pick up, order, etc. I picked it up. You've seen it.
It's beautiful.
It looks great. I've done
red seats.
Red seats. I did some aftermarket stuff to it. It looks really good. And so I'm enjoying it. It's great. And then Tesla announces, hey, now you can get the performance model. And I'm like, oh, what's that mean? What is that?
What does that mean?
I don't know what that means. So basically, the performance model is, my Tesla's a rear-wheel drive. This is a 4-wheel drive. 2 motors, 1 motor for the front wheels, 1 motor for the back wheels, which is interesting because usually in a car with all-wheel drive, if something happens to the motor, the engine, you're done. But with the Tesla, if one of those 2 motors goes out, the other motor's still fine, so you can still drive around. But it goes from 0 to 60 in like 3 seconds.
Which you clearly need to do where you live.
I need that. I mean, it's basically the top of the line for the Model 3, which I thought I already had. And then they're like, hey, here's something even better. And I'm like, okay, the car is new enough and still rare enough, hard to get enough that people are still paying near retail.
Okay. So I've got two main questions for you here. The first is, the old saying is, as soon as you drive a new car off the lot, you lose a significant amount of value. Yeah. Could you actually make money on this?
I don't know that we're at the point where I can make a profit, but we're at the point where I can get close to retail. So not retail, but close to retail. I still have the $7,500 tax credit that will be applied to that car.
Okay.
So basically I can sell it for a minimal loss. And basically if it's more like, the way I'm thinking about it is basically I rented this car for 2 months. How much would that cost? So that's kind of where I'm at.
And the other thing is, I thought the whole idea was that these things were supposed to get cheaper. In other words, the first Tesla Model 3s that were going to come out were the high-end ones and then over time they use that money to fund production models that are higher volume, lower cost.
What they did was they started at the middle.
Okay.
And then they went to the high end that is going to, I mean, quite honestly, that'll be the lowest selling one.
Yeah.
But that's, they're just trying to reach profitability, and then they'll sell the entry-level model, $35K.
So are you looking to potential buyers? By the way, is it still for sale?
It is still for sale right now. So if you want a new Tesla with custom red seats.
What's the FCC going to say about this? Is this so are you planning, do you expect to get a buyer in your region or outside?
My assumption would be, Seattle is one of those cities where before Tesla was around, like you go outside and like, how many Priuses do you just see like all over this city? So like Seattle's a pretty green city, and it's also a pretty prosperous city. So I would imagine that it would be someone in this area.
Okay. All right. Well, the saga of your Tesla Model 3 continues. We've still got to do a show. Now that we've mastered the live stream.
We've mastered today.
We've got to go on and do like a remote shoot live stream.
Yes.
Think we can pull that off?
I think so.
I'm skeptical. I'm skeptical.
The new one is red.
Like on the outside.
Yes. Outside is like fire truck red, and then inside is white.
Subtle. You're not going to get noticed driving around the neighborhood in your red Tesla Model 3.
Right. 0 to 60 in 3 seconds. You're going to be pulled over a lot.
Here comes Andrew. There he goes. You are going to get, especially where you live, man. The police there are brutal.
They're crazy. They're sheriffs. Not even police, like the sheriffs.
Yeah.
Speaking of Tesla, though.
Yeah.
Have you heard about Elon Musk going crazy?
Yes. Okay. So
What's
we've been talking about
this.
So Elon Musk is planning to take Tesla private, and you were quizzing me on what that means.
I was like, what does that mean? Like, why? So why would you do this?
And Michael Dell did something similar with Dell Computers. So there is precedent, if you will, in the whole realm of hardware. You can consider them both hardware, and increasingly the cars are computers unto themselves.
Yes.
The whole idea is for him to be able to have control over the company and not have to answer to Wall Street.
Okay.
So if he can find investors to take the company private, and it looks like he has with these entities out of the Saudi investors, then he can essentially have a lot more control, not have to answer to quarterly earnings calls and all that sort of thing. And
when you hear this, does that sound like a positive for the consumer or a negative for the consumer? Because it almost sounds like I don't want to have to answer to anybody, so there's no more expectations from me. I just want to do what I want.
Well, I actually think that in this case, it's a positive for the consumer because he then is answering primarily to his customers. In other words, if he wants the company to be successful, he does what's best for the customer long term, and he can set aside the short-term need to satisfy shareholder demands.
Okay.
He's not going to have to answer analysts on the next call and say why he did the thing that he did with the Model 3 or, with the flamethrowers or whatever he's doing. I can never remember whether that's part of SpaceX.
Flamethrowers is Boring Company.
Boring Company. Okay. Absolutely. But then he's got Solar City, which merged with Tesla a while back. So, there's all sorts of interesting things that he can do when he does not have to answer to Wall Street. And that's essentially what's going on.
I did order a flamethrower, by the way.
You did.
Are we going to show that on Geared Up?
Yeah. Will everybody survive?
I don't know. They got an invite to go pick it up in San Francisco. It's like, can I take that on the plane though? Like, a little weird.
Well, you drive it back in the trunk of your Tesla.
There you go.
On autopilot.
That's right.
All right. Coming up next on Geared Up, we are going to be talking about the latest in Wi-Fi mesh networking.
Yeah.
That's next on Geared Up. Welcome back to Geared Up. I'm Todd Bishop.
I'm Andrew Edwards.
All right, Andrew, we have been talking about the Tesla Model 3.
Yes.
We've been talking about the Samsung Galaxy Note 9. We got to figure out a way to get internet to these things.
We do.
Yeah.
So how do we do it?
Wi-Fi mesh networking.
Correct.
There are some new developments in this technology. Mm-hmm. But first, give us a sense for what Wi-Fi mesh networking is. And let me say, we've been doing this for a while. We've been talking about it. Mm-hmm. We've got the Eero devices here in the GeekWire offices.
Right.
I actually have been meaning to go back to them. I've been switched back to my Apple airport when we switched internet providers, but I like the Eero devices as mesh networking.
Oh, yeah.
What's new in this field and what should people know?
Okay. So first of all, what you need to know is that traditionally we've been using one router in our homes, right? So we went from wired to wireless. You have one router somewhere in your house, and then that router is expected to broadcast a signal throughout your home. And a lot of people, I mean, I think everybody's dealt with, oh, I have a dead spot. Yep. When I go into this room or this area of the house, the Wi-Fi is terrible. So what Mesh Wi-Fi does is it gives you multiple routers that all talk together as if they're one unit. So you have one plugged into your internet, which would be where you have your typical router, and then you spread the other ones around your home. They all talk to each other, either wired or wirelessly, and it's basically multiplying the signal in your house.
So the idea is not that it repeats it, which can actually create signal degradation as you go over distances.
Yes.
But it's one system with equivalent or roughly equivalent signals from each device strategically placed throughout your home or office.
Correct. And so, with that, you will start to see much faster internet speeds. The networks are all the same name, so it's not like you're hopping between the two. It's all seamless as far as the user goes. Some of them are as complicated as, plugging them in different areas of the homes and wiring them. And some are as simple as you set one up and then some of them are just literally, it's a plug. It's almost like one of those Glade, you plug in the air fresheners just like that, but instead of giving you fresh air, it gives you internet.
Fresh Wi-Fi.
That's right. So yeah.
What's new on this front?
Just the other day I published a video, I think it was yesterday, on the new Samsung SmartThings Wi-Fi, another product Samsung announced this week. What they're doing is similar to Eero, almost in look as well. But they ship 3 in a box. You can connect up to, I believe, 32 of these. Each one gives you 1,500 square feet of coverage. So you can get 48,000 square feet of Wi-Fi using the Samsung system. But the cool thing,
48,000 square feet?
So imagine like you have
That's like a grocery store.
I know, it's crazy. But the other cool thing is Samsung has built in a smart home hub. So usually you have a hub, and the hub has the same issue where if your whole house has smart home items, the hub might not be able to reach the upstairs smart shades. Or if it can, it takes it a minute from when you give it a command to actually, talk to it. So you can have a mesh Wi-Fi network and also have multiple smart home communication in your home as well. So all your devices can talk to your service.
And they're using artificial intelligence, I understand,
Correct.
as part of this to basically make it so that it's doing the right thing at the right time to connect to the right devices.
That's right.
And
it
provide
has
enough.
Plume's Wi-Fi software built in, which is constantly re-optimizing and making sure you're getting the best connection on each of the devices.
So that costs about $280, and that's available now.
Now.
The new Samsung Mesh
SmartThings. SmartThings Wi-Fi.
All right. Thank you for listening to Geared Up. If you're not already, you should subscribe to the show and Andrew's YouTube channel to see our live behind the scenes videos. You can do that at youtube.com/gearlive.
And of course, you can subscribe to Geared Up on your favorite podcast app. Just search Geared Up. That's 2 words, not one, in Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen.
If you like what we do, consider leaving us a rating and a review. It really helps other people find the show. Geared Up is a GeekWire podcast. You can see more from us at geekwire.com. Claire McGrane produces the show. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. Until next time, I'm Todd Bishop.
I'm Andrew Edwards.
Talk to you next time on Geared Up.